Well, we are currently in this series looking at the Sermon on the Mount. We just have a couple of weeks left, but in every week we've heard some crazy talk from Jesus. And today, there's a portion of the section we're looking at that you're going to kind of shake your head and think, what in the world is Jesus talking about there? But before that, he's going to say something that we're all clear about what he's talking about. In fact, what we're going to look at today is the most well-known passage of the Bible for everybody, whether you're a Christian, but more importantly, if you're not a Christian today, you know what this passage is. In fact, some people have no claim that they're a follower of God, but they know this by heart. And that's the one thing that they most dislike about us who claim to be followers of Jesus, is that they don't see us doing what Jesus said for us to do. Do you know what the most famous passage, the most well-known passage in all the Bible is? You don't know me. You don't know anything about my life, Earl. You don't know my story. You haven't walked in my shoes. You got no right to critique me, which, by the way, is where we get our word critic from, is this word judge. Same root word. And so if you're not a follower of Jesus today and you happen to be here today because, he's kind of cute or she's kind of cute, or July 4th, you're home to see the parents, and so this is where you're at. Whatever the case is, I want you to just kind of be comfortable, because we're going to address this today, not towards you, but towards ourselves as followers of Jesus. Because when Jesus says these words, he's talking to this group on this mountainside. And he's been saying some amazing things. And again, he said it all in one setting. We've been benefited to take weeks to look at it. For us, we may be a little slower, or we may just need a little more time to process some of this stuff, right? But let me ask you a question as we start today. Is that even possible? How many of you would be willing to be honest today? I want you to look around at people that are not raising their hands. Check where your wallet, your purse, your cell phone is right at this moment, all right? How many would say, if you were honest, that you struggle with not judging somebody? We had more hands that time than the first question, so that's kind of a weird thing, but all right. But when Jesus says this word, don't judge others, it's not a standalone statement. In fact, it goes on, and that's important for us to know, because it's so easy to go, hey, you're a Christian, you're not supposed to judge me. The Bible says that. I don't know where it's at. I'm not even sure who said it, but I know it says somewhere in there, do not judge. In fact, it probably has those more, those higher words. Thou shalt not judge, right? And so I don't know anything else, but I know you're not supposed to be doing that, so leave me alone. But this is not a standalone verse. In fact, it goes on, and Jesus explains why we shouldn't judge. And more importantly, the root cause of our judgment. But before we get to the other knots that Jesus talks about here, I want to invite you to bow your heads, and let's pray one more time today, all right? Lord, all I know to say is I'm guilty as charged. It is so easy to be a critic. It is so easy to make evaluations of others. It is so easy to be prejudiced, to prejudge someone I don't even know, simply because how they look, how I perceive they act, what I think their story is. And so today, in this time space that I've come to hear from you, I ask that you would say something clearly to me. And that you would break this desire to judge and change it into a desire to bless. And to change it into a desire to be appreciative and thankful, and even overwhelmed by your mercy and grace to me. And I pray that would grow bigger than the things I see in others' lives. and let them grow so small and my stuff grow so big that I don't judge them inappropriately or inaccurately, but that I see them with your heart and through your eyes. In your name, amen. So today our section is Matthew chapter 7, the little first part of it, verses 1 through 6. So Jesus says to this crowd that day, as he's going through all this stuff, this time he says, listen, don't judge others, or you will be judged. It kind of sounds like a threat there, doesn't it? Don't judge others, or so that you will not be judged. So it sounds kind of simple. I don't judge you, you don't judge me. We're all happy, right? But there's more than what Jesus is saying. There's not a simple, don't do it because that'll put you in a bad spot. But Jesus wants to expand because Jesus knows it is so hard for us not to judge. You ever been with a group of other people? You ever been people sitting someplace? You see somebody walking like a restaurant or the mall, or maybe you've gone, how many of you have ever gone people watching? Isn't that fun? You know, you sit there, you got your drink, you sit in a little chair and you watch people walk by. And if you're with one of those groups, somebody in the group has comments about everybody, right? Do you see what she is wearing? No, don't look. Now look. No, don't look, Look at those two. What is she doing with him? We have all these kind of evaluations. What they're looking like. Watch out for these two. Look at them. And it's so easy to sort of get caught up in that. But Jesus says, listen, don't judge or you'll be judged so that you won't not be judged. You will be judged in the same way that you judge others. Now, some of us think, well, that's okay with me, because what I'm judging you about, I got nothing to do with, so I'm going to be okay with that. But that's not Jesus' point. Jesus expands and says, listen, the standard, that is the measure you use for others, will be the standard, the measure used for you. So if you look at them and go, look how they're dressed, you're going to be judged by, look at everything about you as well. And Jesus is reminding us of something so hard for us to understand. Something we resist so much. See, if you feel any joy, any happiness, any satisfaction, any superiority in critiquing, you've got a problem. Because your problem isn't the stuff they have, it's your stuff. Now, I'm going to take a risk this morning. I wasn't raised a Christian. Didn't become a Christian until about 21 years of age. And we had a phrase, and I'm going to be very careful, but I think it's an important phrase because I think it's what Jesus is trying to get apart. We used to have this phrase that person acts like their stuff doesn't smell. I don't know how Christians say that. I haven't been a Christian long enough I've never heard it. But it's sort of this idea. And this is the point that Jesus is after. When we act like we don't got stuff, we've missed the reality about our lives, which is a bigger problem. And then Jesus goes in and makes this commentary on them. And he says, listen, before we do that, let's ask an honest question this morning. Why do we like to judge? Have you thought this through? Offer some suggestions, or maybe some other ones you have. Something that feels good about it, isn't it? Because if I get to judge you, it makes me feel better about myself. And I always seem to pick on things that you struggle with, not the things that I struggle with, because then it makes me even feel better. Another reason is that it makes us feel superior. Makes us feel good. Christians have a real struggle with this one, especially our brand of Christianity. There's just something about having the truth and being right and winning every argument because I'm right, which means, and I'll always remind you that you're wrong because that means I'm right. And there's just something fun about it, isn't it? I mean, we've all been there in that restaurant, we're looking at the menus and and you overhear something and somebody says, do you hear what they're saying? How can they be, blah, 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 blah. And, and the whole don't look, Chip, you've had it, don't look. No, don't look, don't act like you're seeing it. Oh, you see it. Oh, we have this big discussion about, oh, how terrible, how bad. How could they do that kind of stuff? But there's something fun about it. And that's where the real danger of this whole thing is, that it sucks us into this funness. It sucks us into the feeling right, which makes us feel superior, which ultimately makes us feel good. And there's something that we are all wired to want to feel good more than we want to feel bad. And then Jesus asked this question. Why is it that you notice the little piece of dust, that speck in your friend's eye, but you don't notice, that is, you don't consider the big piece of wood, the plank, the beam in your eye? Why is that? What is it about us that always seems to pick on something little but miss the big thing? Why is it that, like, you're out at a restaurant, maybe you're out at a barbecue place, and you're there and you've ordered the ribs, and your date has ordered the salad, and you're sitting there eating, and you look across to her and you say, you got a little something right here. Yeah. While you're sitting there and you got, barbecue sauce all over your hands, all over your face, all over that cute little bib they give you so you don't get it, and you're like, and that's Jesus' point. How foolish is that? And you're sitting there covered all this stuff and you're going, just a little, right, now a little bit more, yeah, there. Why is it that we do that kind of thing? And he goes on. How can you say to your friend, let me take care of that little piece of dust, that speck out of your eye? Look at yourself. You still have that big piece of wood, that beam in your eye. To which Jesus says, you hypocrite. You act like your stuff doesn't smell. You hypocrite. And the truth of the matter is, we all at times are hypocrites. Don't look at anybody else. Just look up here towards me, right? I'm not talking to them, I'm talking to you. Right? Say one thing and do something else. You point out something to them so you don't have to worry about pointing out stuff in your own life. Because that feels bad, but this way, that feels good. Makes me feel good. Makes me feel superior. Makes me feel right. And it's a little fun in the process. Then Jesus says something interesting. You hypocrite, first, take the wood, that is the plank, the beam, out of your own eye. So first implies that there's a movement here, right? You do this first, and then something second happens. And so, Jose, first I take care of my business, and then you will see clearly to take the dust, that is the speck, out of your friend's eye. So which we say, see, Jesus knows there's a little thing there in their life. So he knows this. My issue, I just got to get this thing out of my life, and then I can go to judging. Is that Jesus' point? I'll help you out. But we resonate with that, don't we? I mean, how many times, okay, Jesus, I'll take care of that. Now I got that fixed. Now I'm free to judge. Free to enjoy the freedom to judge. Bad, 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 bad. Really bad back all the way in the back, because that's why you sit all the way in the back. Bad, 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 bad. Up here in the front, same reason. You're trying to get closer to God. Bad, bad, bad. We go to all that kind of stuff, right? Jesus tells us to not do something that we think we can do, then tells us to do something we cannot do. And that's because planks are more than just a piece of wood. There's something that obstructs our views. Makes it hard for us to be able to see. And the planks in your life are there because of your insecurities. The planks in your life are there because of the things that have happened in your life. The planks in your life may actually be generational. Things passed down. My mom was a judge. My mom's mom was a judge. My mom's mom's mom was a judge. We're a great family of judges. I learned it early and often, and so I'm here to bless you. It's my gift. And we cannot miss this, that Jesus tells us to not do, and then tells us to do something we cannot do. Because you cannot remove this plank out of your eye. Because you don't know there's a plank in your eye. That's his point, right? See, how do you pick up the little bit over there and if you don't see the big beam, right? We all go, what beam? I mean, I got a little something, right here in the corner, but it's nothing big. It's a little makeup, right, or something, eyelash. It's nothing big. And we miss that this is an invitation not to first take care of this so I can get on to what I really want to do because, man, you got some stuff. In fact, I haven't been able to do it for a while because I've been working on this plank, so I've been keeping notes, just waiting for this opportunity. And we miss that this is an invitation to have somebody step into our life and do what we cannot do. So that through that experience, we no longer desire to do the thing that we wish we could do. And then Jesus goes off in a different direction, and it's some crazy talk. I mean, the first part makes sense, right? You're at that restaurant, you're all covered in barbecue sauce. We would all laugh at somebody who's saying, you got a little poppy seed there in your teeth, when they're all covered with that. We would all laugh. We'd all recognize that's Jesus' point. But then Jesus says something really crazy. He says, listen, don't give holy things to dogs. And don't throw your pearls to pigs. To which some of us are going, I didn't think we were supposed to have pearls in the first place. How are we having pig? It's crazy kind of stuff, right? But what in the world is Jesus talking about here, right? He's been talking about not judging, and now he says don't give holy things to dogs and don't throw pearls to pigs, so we're not supposed to, the people we want to judge, just kind of forget them because they wouldn't respond anyway. And then he goes on and says, listen, pigs will only trample them and dogs will only turn to attack you. Anybody have any idea what Jesus is talking about? Well, that makes all of us. Because I honestly, I have no idea what Jesus is talking about. It has something to do with this whole judging thing. And the best I can make out, and I'm not sure about this, but the best I can make out is simply this. Some of us sit in this room are a little piggy at time. Some of us are a little doggy at time. And remember, this is not your little, Fido or Spot or Alfred or whatever the name of your dog is. Back then, dogs were scavengers just like pigs. They were not pets to have. They were things to be careful of. Wild animals. And sometimes, we're like that with other people. And sometimes, because of that, we get in and trample on things. And sometimes we turn and attack others. And in that process, we miss Jesus' vital point. And that is that don't give holy things. That is, don't give sacred things to pigs or dogs. Because they won't treat them as sacred things. And do you know what the most sacred thing in this whole planet is? This is called dramatic effect, by the way. I want you to turn to your right and look at somebody next to you on your right. That way. There you go. Now look at them. Don't just look to the wall. Look at a person. All right. Now look the other way to the left. Look behind you. Look in front of you. Everybody you just saw is the most sacred thing to God. Because you and that person sitting next to you, and the person sitting behind you, and the person in front of you are so holy, so sacred to God himself that he sent Jesus to this planet to not just die for us, but to become one of us. So forever he would be linked with humanity, not just because of care, not just because of love, not just because of concern, but through this weird thing that none of us can understand. Somebody fully God, fully human, but forever we're linked there. Then he would die for those sacred things, knowing that a lot of those sacred things, those holy things, would never respond. That some of those holy things would be antagonistic towards him. But for some of those holy things, something would happen in their lives. That while we were separated from him, while, as John says it, while we were yet sinners, and while we are still sinners, that Jesus died for us. And then he came back to life. Because the sacred thing is so important to know that not only can we cover those sins, but we have to give them hope that there's something through those sins, that there's healing that can take place, that there's hope that planks can come out of their eyes, that there's hope that life could enter into their life again. See, none of us likes to be judged. In fact, for some of us in this room, you're at the right generation where any kind of judgment is viewed as terrible, you know? You know, you get those little certificates, participation trophies for every blamed thing you go to. You know, and the fact that somebody could say, oh, you colored outside of the lines and put the wrong color. How dare you, you know, I'm being myself, I'm free, you know? Which, by the way, was a judgment on you, and I apologize, all right? Because much like you, I'm a hypocrite as well. But none of us like that. And all of us want the ability when somebody judges us to say, listen, do you know my story? Let me tell you. Call on me because there's something you need to know. You need to know why I'm doing what I'm doing, because then you wouldn't be doing what you're doing, because then you know why I do what I do. We always want to have a chance to explain. Because we're afraid. We are afraid that we will be pointed out, that we'll be judged, that we'll be critiqued, that we'll be laughed at, shunned, made fun of, and sit alone in our bedroom crying at some point. And when we do that, we forget our sacredness and reminded again of how piggy and doggy people are at times. And being flipped with the sacred. The one thing that God cared enough about on this planet to do something dramatic about, to do something life-changing about. So when Jesus says, don't judge, so you don't get judged yourself. When he says, recognize that however you measure things out to somebody else, it's going to come back to you. That when he says, listen, don't point out that little salad dressing in the corner when you got rib juice all over you, right? When he says, don't do what you want to do, that is judge somebody, until you do what you can't do, that is heal yourself. It's an invitation for us to recognize again how much we need him. and how messed up, how broken, how hopeless we are when we're left to our own devices. Because we can all be vicious, just like the pigs and just like the dogs. And if you don't believe me, remember back to your elementary school days. If you were at the bottom of the pile, last one picked. First one picked on, the last one picked. Or maybe your high school years. Remember those wonderful feelings you had being around those other kids your age? And how nice they always were. And how when you showed up that day and had a pimple on your face, and you earned that new nickname that lasted with you throughout high school and even today when they see you. When you had that one bad hair day, or somebody hadn't done your clothes, mom didn't wash them, and so I had to wear that thing again, and you didn't smell very good that day, and so you got that name Stinky, and now they say, hey, Stinky, how you doing? All that kind of stuff. We are reminded again that we are all vicious creatures. There's a little pig and dog in all of us. But there's something sacred even about us who find ourselves in that condition. And it's to that Jesus hopes to draw us. So let me just kind of wind this up today by talking about this. Here's kind of a summary of what Jesus says. What to do when tempted to critique. Because we're all tempted. So here's what to do. Number one is, I know somebody's going, wow, that's amazing. How did you think of that? That's why you ought to read your Bible. There's some great stuff in it, right? But he says don't, right? Don't, because it's not good for me. It's not good for me spiritually. It is not good for me emotionally. It's not good for me relationally. Don't do it. Because the reality is, if you're a jerk, people are going to treat you like a jerk. Which Jesus says, don't be surprised, because that's how you go. That's how it's going to come back. Secondly, consider my motive. What is it in you desiring so much to critique that other person, to judge that other person, to say, you got a little something here, or a little something all up in here? What's your motive behind that? Is it a pure motive? Or is there some ulterior motive that drives it? See, Jesus' point is simply this: I should distrust my motives more than I dislike their actions. Because while I might dislike their actions, if I'm honest with myself, my motives are rarely ever pure at heart. And thirdly, I need to recognize that I need help too. Because I do. And I'm guessing you do as well. And that is Jesus' point. You need help because while you see the little speck in somebody's eyes, you find the littlest thing to kind of go, critique. That you've missed this huge beam. And the description there is this idea of, the kind of thing that we put at the top of buildings. So it's a big beam. It's the kind of thing that you could not hold up if you were trying to hold it up. And we all need help. And if we don't recognize or don't finally get to that place of recognizing that need, we will simply stay piggy and doggy. And not the good kind. So let me wrap up by saying this. What if? What if we decided to actually do this? That is not judge. and drop the whole can I judge now loophole. Because I think for some of us as followers of Jesus, we think that's the option. You know, he says first, come on, Mike, that's what the text says. He says first do this, then I can do that. The problem is, when are you sure you've done the first? Because you didn't know it was there in the first place. You're still not convinced it's there. I know some of you. I see you roll your eyes. But what would it look like if we actually did this? If we decided I'm going to drop the critiquing and go to the valuing side. Then I'm going to begin to try to kind of rewire how I see things and not see them and go, can you believe she's wearing that? You know, I'm going to stop that and think, well, look, can you believe she's here? That's great. So good to see her. See, what if we surrendered to the plank remover? Not so we could judge, but so that we can clearly see him. Because I'm convinced when we clearly see him, we won't focus so much on the specks in other people's lives. We would simply be reminded of how great, how amazing, how mind-blowing it is to consider that you and I are sacred, that you and I are holy, that you and I are worth dying for and living for, even though all of us know at our core we are none of those things, yet we are all of those things. So what would that look like this week? If you made a conscious decision, this week will be a no judging zone. Which also means if somebody comes in and begins to judge, thou shalt not judge. It's not, you can't judge them. You know, you just got to kind of work this thing through, which would be kind of weird, right? Because we wouldn't mind that if it's a no judge zone and I were able to say, Fred, stop it, no judge, right? We're making everybody kind of conform. But what if it's not about everybody? What if it's simply about you and what goes on in your life and the challenges and the reality of that? So this is the question we've been asking every week, and I ask it again today. What do you most need to do, but least want to hear? Especially as it gives to judging, this idea of critiquing. What do you most need to do with this? And what is it that you least want to hear? Because you know as well as I do that you know that's the thing you really need to do. And by the way, that's why Jesus said on that dusty afternoon, on that hillside, don't judge. Because when you judge, it won't go well for you. And when you judge, you miss all the stuff in your own life and you're focusing on something so small. And when you judge, you miss what's really sacred. And you trample it and you ruin it.